Hey, good morning. It's Mark Lowe with Kentucky Tennessee Research. You're about to go into a new location in your research. Maybe you found a record and you want to learn more about it and get started, and you're all ready. Before you go, you might want to listen to some of the suggestions I have before you go to a new location. So join me as we travel together today, right now. In this session, I'm going to talk about how I plan, even from afar, to use resources. And having spent a week with folks in Pittsburgh, as I told you, I realized, number one, I'm borderline OCD. I realize I'm so detail-oriented, I just can't help myself. And yet I've been tested, and I'm not. At least I paid enough to not be. Anyway. We're going to talk about connections between states, because often when we're looking to solve a problem, we look for a record as opposed to looking to solve a problem. And I want to talk about how I research, which may be different than some, and then how I research before I get into the digs of answering the questions, okay? So you'll spend a little time with me from that process. Then I'm going to share with you strategies that work for me, okay? Whether they work for you, and you find what works for you. Then I'm going to talk about essential records within the states that are likely to be found, and I'll focus on the states I work in most, which is a little bit. So know that we can extrapolate this to some other references as well. And then we'll talk about some of the clues that I use and some of the tips that I may use for finding those records. Okay? We'll do some repeating, so don't worry if you say, didn't he just say that? Yeah. Because the reason I repeat is I think it's important enough to say it again. So if I do that a couple of times, know that it is intentional and that I totally have not lost it here, okay? Or at least that's my intent. I'm not saying I won't have lost it here by the end of that period. Yeah, research is an interesting concept, and how we research is very different from person to person. In fact, I know that to be true because in the number of years I'm researching, I have hired a number of associates or people to work with me. And they don't always do it the way I do it. And that's probably where I sometimes say, yeah, my OCD kicks in if I had it. I'm not OCD. I have no problem with people who are. I like them because they're detail-oriented. But I can't handle folks who listen to music when they're reading documents. I can't do it. Maybe you can. But I need focus. I need to stay focused on what I'm hearing from the record. I need to be focused on what I'm thinking about the record. I need to be thinking about when I'm sitting in a computer and having fun. I do, by the way. That's when I'm sitting in my rocking chair with my iPad. That's fun time. When I'm actually at the desktop or at the laptop or even with my iPad, and you see me not rocking as much, that's when I'm a little more serious. I'm focused. And focus is one of the serious issues that affects our research, by the way. Okay? I love that movie, Up, the Disney movie Up. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. You'll understand what I mean by focus. Those of you who have watched it will get this, right? Squirrel. Okay? If you haven't, it's worth watching just to see that. All right? As we're researching, we research multiple families, multiple names, and we're researching a record, and we begin to find what we're looking for, and suddenly one of those other names appears on the page. Many times we stop what we're doing, follow that, and then we never get what we started doing done. Okay? Usually those don't pay off, and I mentioned to you yesterday, that's where I keep the index cards. And I'll jot them down, jot the reference. I hope I said it yesterday. If I didn't, I'll say it right now. I keep a stack of index cards everywhere I go. And when I'm finding something like that, rather than stop and chase it, I make a note to go back to it. Okay? And I'm still far behind. Still far behind. Where are we going? Okay? The direction. So let's talk about some things to do when we have records somewhere else that we're trying to locate. And I'll tell you exactly what I do. And you know what? It is so hot and so muggy. I got an idea. Let's go to Hawaii. Fine. I've been working on my hula. Okay? So let's think for a second, if we were going to Hawaii, what would we do? Now, we may be just going virtually, but we're going to pretend we're going. No matter where we're going in the world, even if it's to another state archives, you should still do the same process I'm telling you as if you're planning a vacation. And you'll understand why in just a moment. Number one, gather local maps. Okay? And I don't know about you, but since I'm a kid, I have studied local maps of places we were traveling, we were visiting. In fact, my dad would often save the map from a previous trip and for me to study and play with. And I often memorized locations along the way and little places there, such as we drove down the road. Remember, I had to entertain 7 people in a car. So I needed to know as we passed, to our right, you'll see, almost like a tour guide from time to time. Gathering local maps begins to put us in mindset of what it is we're trying to find out. Because if we're going to be researching from afar, we're not there to ask the questions necessarily that we might not know about because we don't live in the area. Okay? Now, local maps could also be the time period that we're researching there. This is the time we can go online, and we're going to research 1836 to 1845. So why don't we look for local maps from that time period? See what I'm saying? This is preparation. Preparation. I want to understand more about it. I still remember the first time I went to Hawaii many years ago, and my thought was, I've heard it my whole life. How beautiful is Hawaii? Okay, what they never failed to tell me was the 15-hour plane ride. Okay? I don't know how you prep for that, by the way. And then I was looking forward to the lei ceremony, LEI, the flowers, okay? I'd seen it on TV, so I was so looking forward to it. And it hacked the one that I had, which happened as I realized I am a bit of a detail-oriented person as well. And I was looking at my cost and I thought, I paid $60 a piece for these flowers? So I'm anticipating them to be, and they were beautiful, beautiful. But on TV, they come and they say, welcome, aloha, and they put them on your head. And the ones that I had, a smaller airport, the person was standing there and said, here they are, would you sign this that you received them? After 15 hours on a flight, that's not the way to greet me to a new place. Anyway, it was much better another time. But still, so prepping is important. I am a freak about travel guides. Okay? So why not focus on the local area again? We can look at current travel information. You know why? It's going to talk about historical sites and things to do and places of interest. And if you come to Tennessee, for example, you'll find out where you can legally buy moonshine. It's always important at some point, evidently. Or where to buy it otherwise, okay? Where does it come from? Local hunting and fishing guides. So when you talk about locality, the more you learn about the location where you're researching, the better off you are. And I find often people make mistakes because they don't understand the area. Okay? We don't all talk alike. And as we go to a location, getting the local stuff in your hands first helps you remember, they say things different. I have a friend who's been researching in Kentucky quite a few years. I would say long enough that she should have learned the correct names of the counties at this point. But she insists there's a county in Kentucky, Garrard, Garrard, that she insists is Girard. Okay? She can insist all she wants. The county is Garrett. Okay? Call those ladies up in the clerk's office. This is Girard County, isn't it? No. Boom. You have the wrong county. Boom. She looks it up again, calls again. Is this Girard County? She'll keep trying. No, this is not. What county is this? Garrett. Okay. So before you go, you have that anger in you. Get it out. If you're going to call them on the phone, get it out. They don't want to hear it either. Don't we have a right to be called by who we are? Those of you that have unusual names, doesn't it frustrate you when people, even if it's spelled exactly as it sounds and they call you something different? It's frustrating. So as researchers, we have to be not spoiled. We have to read ahead of time. Find out. If we don't know, then that's the time to do it, the travel guide. How do they say the cities? How many courthouses did they have? Okay? The simple things that people who live there know. What are the grocery stores? I know that sounds silly, but the more you know about the area, I guarantee you, the more successful you'll be as a researcher. I would talk to friends who visited there, or researchers in this case. If you know folks who have been there, why not ask them? Or if they are researching at the state archives, which we'll talk quite a bit more today, then what clues do you have? Why not talk to people who are researching the same areas, which we do that a lot. You know, we collect cousins and all that sort of thing. And we have a web today where we can talk. You can Facebook to people about, oh, have you been to the North Carolina State Archives? And so again, that is a good idea. Certainly when you go to Hawaii, you talk to people, have you been? Where'd you stay? What'd you do? That sort of thing. You can also talk to a travel professional. And in this case, it would not probably be a travel agent, but people who specialize in the area. It's where I'm going to call on my librarians and my archive friends, or even professional researchers or writers who are in that area who might have information to share for me. Okay? I'll use the internet to find additional information. And I'm one of those people that in Pittsburgh last week, I think I told you guys that I found that cemetery, the sister cemetery, where they're buried in chronological order. And they kind of make fun of me. By the end of the week, I almost can write a book about them. Because I'm curious. And I'm not only curious, but I'm curious about other stuff as well. I like to discover. So to have, like the internet, resources that I can look up. I will evaluate those sources, by the way. Okay? People named Anonymous I don't like very well. And I'm very cautious because I don't take myself too seriously, but I take my work very seriously. So I don't want to listen to somebody who's misleading me. And there are people out there who really like to mislead people, by the way. It's a shame it's that way. But there are people who like to mislead us. Take Hula lessons before you sit down at the computer or go to Hawaii. You know, they're going to call you up on stage if you go. And it looks much better to go ahead and prepare and take the lessons. Now, what I really mean by this, if you're going to use resources that are in German, okay, or Danish, or French, or Spanish, you need to prep that a little bit before you sit down and start looking online. Those records that are in foreign languages, there are many of them that are available to us today online. So why would we wait until we're sitting there and say, darn, I knew I should have learned that Spanish better. Prepare before you do it. Okay? Get the preparation. And by the way, Hula lessons are very relaxing. Didn't say I was good, just said I took lessons. Either way, too, when you run across somebody who's from that area, or if you have cousins who live in that area, talk to them about what's going on now. Are they aware of, is the state archives closing? Are they aware of record changes? Are they aware of anything that will affect our research in the next few weeks? Okay? And also, they'll point out things that are important. When I go on vacation, I'm a person who plans. I have a good time, very relaxed. But I kind of have a control issue. I want to know where I'm going to be, how I'm going to get there, when I can get home. Even when I'm sitting on a computer using the internet, I plan what I'm going to do. The only time I don't is if I'm at home in my rocking chair with my iPad. I'm pretty secure. So I need to know, if you're going to work to solve a problem or get a record on one of these sites we talk about today, you need to reserve the time to do it. For example, if you're going to go to North Carolina to get a land grant, let's think about how long it would take, number one. If you just need one land grant, you probably think, oh, I'll sit down, I'll have that in 15 minutes. If you were going to get that land grant, it would take 6 hours, about 45 minutes to get to the archives. It would take you a while to get your researcher's card and information. Then you would sit down and begin to use the finding aids, even though you had looked it up ahead of time and brought it with you. And then they would pull the file, which would take 45 minutes or so. You would begin to read it, look at it. You would also look at everything related to it before and afterwards. And given that, you would probably have spent in that about 10 hours for one record. Okay? Now we can remove the travel there, but often when we're home, we don't do the other stuff. And yesterday I talked to you about clickitis. Do y'all know what clickitis is? Those that weren't here yesterday hadn't heard this. But one of my colleagues says that genealogists have clickitis. We see it on the screen, and we click to the next page without reading everything, even on this page, that applies to that record. I think for many of us, they could just take those scroll buttons off our mice or our touch pads. We're not scrolling. And web page designers tell me that we only read what's in that flash size, just that size. And that tells me that you're losing all the stuff that's at the bottom with all the details. You might be losing links to more detailed information about what we're looking for. So as I show you this, I want you to plan to slow down long enough to read the pages. I think it's all appropriate attire is important. Okay? But you're at home, just don't Facebook the pictures, or, if it's not appropriate, we don't need to know. I'm researching today we don't fill in the blank. We don't want to know, okay? If you come to my archives, though, I guarantee you that you'll get better results if you're dressed appropriately, if they think you're professional about it, or at least you know what you're talking about. Same thing is true online. If you look at emails that people write, if you're going to ask a question, the discussion of your family is not the way to start it. The record question should be clear, and then why you need this information should be secondary. Okay, we'll look at that a little closer. That's like dressing. Document your trip. Even though you're sitting in an internet site or at a computer, have you ever found something on the computer and you couldn't print it for some reason? It wouldn't print, or there was something wrong with your printer, or the web just wouldn't generate. You couldn't get it off. One of my best friends has had something. They found something they've been looking for years. She said she tried to print it, and she was totally out of ink. Printer was out of ink, and they didn't live close to a Walmart or Target. She waited till the next morning, and she jotted down the URL, copied it. I'll go get it in the morning, and it was what we call a dynamic URL. It wasn't good the next morning. It was only good for that second that she looked at it. She still has not found that resource yet. Okay, so be prepared. If she had a card, of course I have a camera. Now we have our phone. I could at least take the picture of the page and the record and jot it down. I could have written a transcription of that effort. Okay? Rest. Prepare. Let's be honest. How many of you have gotten started on an issue and you're still up at 2, 3 in the morning playing with your genealogy? Okay, and if you're not, I'm proud of you. But still, we do better jobs when we're rested. And if it's important to us, let's rest and prepare. In fact, in the class that I just left last week, I gave them an assignment, showed it on the screen, and I said, this is your assignment. And I said, here's the rest of your assignment. Read it, put it away. I don't want you to start on this assignment for 2 days. I mean it. Don't look it up. Don't make any notes about it. I don't want you even touching this again until Wednesday. I gave it to them on Monday. The other teacher in my class just could not. She was back there on the computer right then. I said, you can do it. And I told them, let it alone. They didn't know what I meant by that. Seriously. And do you know what I meant by that? It allowed their mind to prepare what it was I asked them to do. And they were able to do it in half the time. They said they couldn't believe how quickly it went when they started doing it. Okay? So there's something about being rested and allow your mind to prepare.